Okay, for today, we're starting by reviewing for rational functions. It's the review for the cumulative, but of course that's also a review for the final. So here is the first question I want you to try. I'm going to pause while I put that up there. Okay, so here is your first question. It's just a divide problem, and hopefully you remember that divide problems can change to multiply problems if you flip the right part. And then if you can factor it, you should. Pause for a second, let me give that a try. Okay, so we got a whole bunch of things to cancel after we flipped and multiplied, and our final answer came out to 1 over x plus 1. And now we're figuring out what this thing's horizontal asymptotes, vertical asymptotes, poles, and domain are. I encouraged kids to write the domain with a number line. It's a lot easier than having to make the intervals. It's good to know both. I want to pause for a second. Let me give that a try. All right. One thing I get asked a lot, and I bet a lot of people have forgotten, is what are those rules for horizontal asymptotes? There's 3 kinds, and I'm going to go on the other screen and show you. For horizontal asymptotes, those are horizontal asymptotes, right? Y equals things. There's either bigger on top. Actually, I like to start with Bob usually. Bigger on bottom, bigger on top, or same on both. And it's about the degree it has. If it's a Bob, it's a y equals 0 almost every time. Unless what? There's something on the outside, yes. So Bob's an outsider. Then, if you guys are going to chat about math, which I know it is, just keep it quieter. Bots. There's no bots. That means there's none of those kind of asymptotes. No horizontals if it's a bot. And last is the same on both, so that's y equals a what? Oh, it's called, starts with an R. Anybody do it? Ratio of the what's? Yes, it's a ratio of the LC's. So I'll give you an example. That one's bigger on the bottom. Not because of the 7, but because the x has a power of 1, and on the top they don't have any x to any power, so that's like an x to the 0 on top. So it's degree 1 on the bottom, so it's bigger on the bottom. So what's its equation? Well, I'm going to make it a little more complicated. I'm putting a plus 3 out there. So what would the horizontal asymptotes of that Bob be? Y equals 3. Don't forget the y equals part. A lot of people do that on the test. They just write 3. And you couldn't type that into like Desmos and have it graph it. It doesn't know what 3 means. If you say y equals 3, then it could show you where the asymptote was. Okay, next, the bots. This would be simple. It's none if it's bigger on the top. So like x squared plus 3 over x. That would be a bot. Here's the same on both. X plus 6, x minus 7 over x squared plus 20. That's the same on both, because if you multiply the top out, you'd have an x squared. So what's its lead coefficients? The 1 here and the 1 here would, once you multiplied it all out, you'd have a 1x on top and a 1x squared, 1x squared on top and a 1x squared on the bottom. So it's y equals 1 over 1. So there's the horizontals. That's a classic thing the kids want to be reviewed usually, because they've often forgot them. So in this case, is this a bigger on bottom, bigger on top, or same on both? It's a bigger on the bottom, so it's y equals 0 unless there's something on the outside, which there isn't. Raise your hand if you had y equals 0. Awesome. Next one is the vertical asymptotes. That's the thing that would make the vertical asymptotes, but you don't say x plus 1. The vertical asymptote would be at y equals negative 1. I'm wrong. It's not y. I caught myself at least. What is it actually? X equals negative 1. Next one, the holes. Is there a hole? Yeah. Every time we did one of these numbers, that was making a hole. And that hole was at 5 comma something. And I told you this was the hardest thing, because people often know 5's important, but they don't know what to do with it. You put it here. And that equation says y equals 1 over 6, 1/6. 5 comma 1/6 was the first hole. There was another hole. This and this made a... Oh, wait, I'm wrong. I circled the wrong ones. Why didn't you stop me? You saw it, but you didn't say anything. Sort of like a train about to go off a cliff. And you just stand there and watch it. Okay, so -5 created a hole. So did +5. That creates a hole. So if I put in the -5, what will I get? I'll get 1 over -1/4. So this one was 1/6. This one's 1 over -4. And then the last hole was at 1. 1 comma, and I put the 1 in here. 1 over 1 plus 1, 1 over 2. There we go. That's the hardest part. Yes, sir. Uh-oh. Yep. You're right. Should be -5. Okay, and now the domain. The domain is everything works except those three things. 5, -5, and a 1. So I would like to do it this way. Wait a minute, you're right. You're right. There was another thing. I forgot about this one. It was staring me in the face right there. That one causes a problem. -1 would also crash my function. Thank you for catching that. So yeah, I should have two things in here. That was about as tough as it could possibly have been. But it's a good review of everything you'd have to know, minus a couple little things. Okay, here's the couple little things. Could you have graphed that? What's your best friend if you stay stuck on graphs? XY chart, and you stick in any numbers you want and see what you get. Let's say I stuck in a 0. Then you'd get 1. 0, 1 must be on your graph. What if I stuck in a -2? That makes -1. That has to be on your graph. Also the asymptotes. I know where the asymptotes are. I just made a big list of them. Here's one of them. Nope, that's not one of them. That's trying to do x equals -1. Wait a minute, that was right. This is the y-axis. This is the x-axis. X equals -1 is right here. That was right. And how about horizontal asymptotes? Y equals 0. Then a couple key points. 0, 1. And -2, -1. And there we go. Guys, I can hear that. In case you're not aware that you're speaking out loud. Okay. All right. So there's graphing. That's part of the test too. And what else could you possibly be asked? Here's the last thing. What if they don't give you the picture or the equation? What if they give you clues? Try this one. This one has a horizontal asymptote at y equals 6. It has a hole at x equals 5. And it has a vertical asymptote at x equals -2. There is more than one answer that would work, but write me an equation. This is not the answer, but it's something like what I'm talking about. Write me an equation like this that would have these three things. It can have other stuff too. Some people get all like how come my answer is different than my friend's? You can have, there's a million right answers to this. You just check yours through and make sure yours, however you write it, has a horizontal asymptote at y equals 6, a hole at x equals 5, and a vertical asymptote at x equals -2. Some people are thinking through bigger on bottom, bigger on top, same on both. You should be. You should be thinking that through. Because if it's got a horizontal, a horizontal, a y equals thing, Bob usually tells you those. There's two different ways you could do it. Just from that perspective. And there's a whole bunch of other things too. But it could either be a Bob. It can't be a bot, can it? No, because there's no asymptotes in the bots. So it could be a Bob or it could be a sob. Who did one that had a Bob? Bigger on bottom. What did you have? I like it. That's a Bob. So we look to the outside and say y equals 6. Cool, that works. Check mark. Does yours have a hole at 5? Yes, because of this. Check mark. Does yours have a vertical asymptote at x equals -2 because of this part? Yes, it does. You pass. Nice job. But there's another way. Same on both. Did you do a sob?
I did.
All right, what'd you do, sir?
Y equals 6x, parentheses, x minus 5 over top. Then on the bottom, parentheses, x minus 5, and then x plus 2.
Does yours have a horizontal asymptote at y equals 6 and explain why?
Yes, because it's the same on both. So the lead coefficients will be 6x squared on the top.
Because it's same on both, it would have a lead coefficient of 6 and a 1, and so you divide those and you get 6. Check mark. You are correct, sir. Tell me how yours has a hole at x equals 5.
The x minus 5.
Check mark. And last, does yours have a vertical asymptote at x equals -2? Because of this? Yes, that's where you find the verticals, down there in the bottom. Yours passes also. Look completely different, but also right. Okay. Are there any other things you want to know about rationals? All right, then I'm going to end the video, and this is the part where you guys are going to work on your review worksheet. And if you want to do corrections on that test, you got to get them done before you take the test. So I strongly recommend that as soon as possible. That's all I got for you for today.